Project 2025, the new conservative plan to seize total control and what it means for the future of the country. Spearheaded by the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025 is a massive 920-page conservative manifesto detailing how they intend to give the president vastly more power, destroy bureaucracy, root out woke propaganda, appoint vetted far-right freedom fighters at every level of government, and have it all ready to implement the day the next conservative president is elected. Which they assume will be 2025, hence the name. The plan is not dependent on any particular candidate winning, but can be implemented with any figurehead at the reins, who will become essentially completely unaccountable. Project 2025 has 4 core pillars. First, the policy, as outlined in the 920-page document. This is where all the heinous and frankly disturbing policy proposals live. 2, the personnel database, which has been described as the conservative LinkedIn. This will be a repository for conservative resumes from people across all sectors and from all walks of life, to be selected as needed to staff positions in every level of government, at both the federal and state level. 3, training. They've got a new online institute. This training program will create willing and able soldiers to serve on the front lines in the war on the woke cabal of the deep state. And finally, 4, the 180-day playbook, a step-by-step guide for the new conservative emperor to systematically implement the policies listed in the manifesto. The manifesto credits 35 total authors, as well as dozens of contributors, all with their credentials listed. It's about what you'd expect. A lot of people from the Heritage Foundation, some military goons, a smattering of former Trump officials, extremist economists, and a considerable number of people who have worked in climate, energy, immigration, and legal positions under conservative governments. What you won't see a lot of in the acknowledgments is religious credentials, which you'd think would be important given how much the document leans on Christian language. This should be your first indication that maybe the people who loudly proclaim their faith aren't really all that Christian, and they're just using it to win brownie points among their religious conservative audience. What exactly do these people want? What's their end goal? Well, there are 4 main priorities. In their words, they want to 1. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. 2. Dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. 3. Defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. And 4, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely. A lot of this project centers around gutting what's called the administrative state. This is stuff like the EPA, FEMA, HUD, the Fed, stuff like that. As Trump stated on numerous occasions, they want to kick the cultural Marxists out of the Department of Education, demolish the deep state, and combat woke ideology at all levels of government. They plan to do this by making extensive use of Schedule F, a piece of legislation established at the federal level by Trump, which allows the president to fire federal government officials at will, presumably for not sufficiently bending the knee. The project calls for an executive branch with essentially unchecked power, making the president basically unaccountable to Congress. They want to dismantle the liberal system to build one more favorable to conservatives. That means scrapping environmental protections, moving away from globalism, punishing corporations for DEI language. They want to escalate tensions with China by ending economic engagement entirely, crack down on immigration, criminalize LGBT expression. They claim that any talk of gender, gender identity, and so on is pornography and should be banned, and has no First Amendment protections. They want to scrap labor discrimination policies. Quote, maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of family, meaning scrap protections for same-sex marriage, and plan to, quote, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, unless of course you're one of the aforementioned groups they intend to criminalize out of existence. In that vein, to touch very briefly on their views on pornography, if you read the text, they basically just mean any discussion of gender, abortion, or any identity other than straight and cisgender. They want all instances of this kind of language stripped from society. While it's a little cliche to compare the conservatives to Nazis, you know what books were the first to be burned? Which institutions were the first to be shuttered? Books on gender and sexuality, and institutions that studied these topics. The key to their plan is to lean on unitary executive theory. This political theory suggests that maybe having 3 separate but equal branches of government isn't a good idea, and that instead, the executive branch should dominate the relationship.
Let's see, you're the executive director for the America First Legal, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and America First Legal is a member of Project 2025, which is dedicated to creating the playbook for the next conservative administration and what it calls the Project Pillars, correct?
We are proud contributors to Project 2025.
Okay, And are you familiar with Project 2025's mandate for leadership?
In fact, I am.
Okay. And in fact, you wrote some of the sections of this mandate related to the DOJ, correct?
Sure did.
And the mandate outlines policy priorities for the next conservative president. Is that correct?
It does.
You've done a great job. I just want to let you know. All right, so let's walk through some of the provisions of the mandate. It calls for eliminating the Department of Education, eliminating the Department of Commerce, deploying the military for the use of domestic law enforcement against protesters under the Insurrection Act of 1807. It also has the repealing of Schedule F status for thousands of federal employees to allow a president to replace career civil servants with unqualified partisan loyalists. That's probably my favorite of it. It also prohibits the FBI from combating the spread of misinformation and disinformation, like Russia and China, who are actively trying to interfere with American elections. I don't know why or how anybody can support Project 2025. And I know that there was allegedly a joke about dictators and whether or not that's funny, but in the United States of America, dictatorships are never funny, and Project 2025 is giving the playbook for authoritarianism as well as the next dictator to come in. And I know that you are doing your jobs here by making sure that hopefully some juror turns on and finds some viral moment of you spewing more of the nonsense as it relates to the president, but as
by your estimation, how would Project 2025 damage American democracy and the rule of law?
Well, Project 2025 lays out in audacious detail a blueprint for an expansion of presidential power unlike any we've seen in our history. It's not just a policy agenda for conservative policies on taxes or the environment. It would fundamentally reshape checks and balances in the constitutional system. It would give a blueprint for the president taking control of the Justice Department and the FBI, for the president taking control of independent agencies. It would, in couple with other agendas, such as Schedule F, which would involve the purging of the federal workforce of many civil servants to be replaced by political loyalists, or the use of the Insurrection Act as a basis either for crackdown on opposition or as a basis for very aggressive seizing of non-citizens, as articulated by former President Trump. A whole host of things, all taken together, would change the nature of American government to something very different from what the founders intended or what any of us would be comfortable with.
If I told you, given your background, that someone running for president of the United States has said, I'll be a dictator on day one. One day. Out of his own mouth. And we know that there are plans to create huge detention camps that could hold and process millions, not thousands, of immigrants in the United States. And they have a plan to politicize the 2.2 million federal employee workforce by creating a new schedule, Schedule F, and initially start with 50,000 political employees appointed rather than civil service career professionals. Would I be fair to say that sounds like weaponization to me?
It does. Project 2025 is very scary to me, and it includes a weaponization attempt through the Department of Justice. It says in plain language that's what they intend to do if Donald Trump is reelected.